Welcome to part 2 of our newborn photography post-processing video lecture series. Again, this is Doc Ian of NAP, Newborn Academy for Photographer, Philippines. This is a workshop that I started here in the Philippines, and I'm giving out this lecture series for free for all of the viewers out there who are interested in venturing into the world of newborn photography. So for this lecture, I will be teaching you a basic orientation on Photoshop and the tools that I personally use when I'm post-processing my newborn photos. So Photoshop is a very complicated, very vast tool, and in no way I can teach you everything that you need to know, but what I'm going to teach you are the tools that I use often and recurrently in my post-processing workflow. All right, so let's begin. So this is my basic Photoshop window and workflow. Here on the right side, I have the tools that I constantly use. I arrange my workflow as such, and you can always arrange it the way you want it, but this is how I do it. The layers panel here is very important, and we will be discussing layers in a while and why it's such an important tool in editing in Photoshop. Okay, and here is my history panel, wherein you can view your actions that you do. So for example, if I dial in a brush right here, okay, that brush, so it appears here where I can easily go back and undo the steps that I did. So this is very, very useful. Okay, in the actions panel are my favorite action sets that I use, and all of the students who enroll in our workshop will get a copy of these actions that I use. So what if you're not enrolled in my workshop, you don't have the action set? You can still benefit from these videos, because a lot of things I'll be teaching, probably around 80% of my workflow is the usual tools that you have in Photoshop, and maybe just 20-40% will be from the action sets that we use. All right, here in the layers panel, we see the layers that we were editing. So for example, I press Command and J, and that is duplicate layer. So J, J, like that. So multiple duplicate layers. These are the layers that we will be working with, and you can delete layers as such. All right, so this layer is also very important. And here we have useful shortcuts such as putting in your mask, layer mask, your adjustment layer, wherein we will be using that especially when we're editing brightness, or when we're editing the hue and saturation and color correcting, as well as grouping images or layers, grouping layers and making a new layer such as that. All right, and also deleting layers is here as well. All right, let's now go to the brush tool, and we will be using this a lot. Okay, so this is the brush tool. When you click it here, the shortcut for the brush tool is B. So for example, you're in another tool and you want to go to the brush tool, simply press B, and in the brush tool you can control the brush size by pressing this bracket, the open and close bracket button. So this one makes it smaller and this one makes it bigger. All right, so in my keyboard I have programmed these buttons to a knob so that I can easily adjust the brush size. 99% of the time when I'm editing, my brush hardness is placed on 0%. Okay, and also my opacity varies from time to time. So do take note, what's the difference? For example, this is my foreground and background layer. So you can choose the color by clicking it. All right, the foreground is the one that is applied when you do your brush. Okay, to go back to the default black and white, simply press D, and to interchange the foreground and the background, press X. So take a look at that over here, it's interchanging, and again D is for default. The opacity, if you hit a brush at 100% opacity, it looks like that. If you hit a brush at 50% opacity, it looks like that. One technique in Photoshop is to do your brush strokes gradually so that the effect is not fake looking. So for example, I will do 20% but several brush strokes. It's more natural as compared to one stroke that is like that. All right, and here's another shortcut. If you want to adjust your opacity, your number keys on your keypad is a good way to do it fast. When I press 0, 100% opacity, 90, 80, 7, 6, 5. If you want 55, just press 5, and then it changes into 55%. So that's a very useful shortcut. All right. The concept of editing in layers and masking. All right, let's now go to layers and masking. When you duplicate your layer, so you have a layer above and a layer below. Remember that the layer above is the one that is shown. So for example, I do a brush here of red at 55, or let's make it 100% opacity. All right, again, hardness is at 0, because if you do it like that 100%, so it's not the edges become hard. When painting over, when you're doing my painting job, I usually do it at 0% hardness. Okay, so if I put it here, you can see in the layer that the brush stroke is over here. If I disable this, it goes away, because again, only the topmost layer is seen. Okay, so more practical application. How do we use layers? All right, so for example, we do a adjustment layer. I want, for example, to change the color, okay, of this blue one into green. So let's go to hue and saturation layer, and let's check the picker tool again. Want to pick which color the dress is, so I pick here, and if I click it here, it tells me that it's blue, and I want to make it green. All right, so I want to make it green, so let's see the hue and saturation. There, it becomes green, right? So this is the layer of your hue and saturation, and it affects only that thing that you want to affect. Remember, if you have a mask, this is what you call your layer mask. White shows and dark black is hidden. What do you mean by that? So for example, this one is in white, meaning that the layer color change that we applied in hue saturation, it is applied to the whole image. If I invert this, so the invert is Command I, it goes away because I inverted my layer. All right, because it's now black. Now, what if I only want to change the headpiece? So this is what we call selective application or painting. And that is why we use the brush. We use a brush of probably 40% opacity. All right. And again, if we want it to show, we want it to be white. So make sure that this is white. And then we brush. So as you can see, the only part that is being brushed is the only part of the image where your certain adjustment layer is being affected. So not the whole image. So that is selective editing. And there's a lot of use for that layer selective editing mode. For example, again, let's delete this. For example, this one. Okay. So for example, I want to make the face bright. Okay. So I want to paint white like this. All right, so let's just do it like that. Again, if I put on a mask and I invert the mask, it doesn't affect the whole image. All right, without the mask, if I invert the mask again, this is what it looks like. But when I mask it, when I blacken it, okay, so I only want to apply the changes here to certain areas. So I paint it again, 30% brush, only on the areas that I want to be brightened up. Do you see that? So it's like dodging, all right, using layers. Okay, the same is true if you made a change. For example, let's delete this mask and create a new mask. So you can create if you don't have a layer mask, you just put this one. So create your layer mask, and you want to remove white shows, black deletes. So press X so that your foreground becomes black, and you can delete the adjustment that you did. Pretty amazing, right? So that is a layer and that is brush. All right, next up I will teach you is about the healing tools that we use. So the shortcut is J and it goes here. So you have your spot healing brush, your healing brush, your patch tool, content aware move tool, not so much. We will focus on the spot healing brush and the patch tool. So the spot healing brush is used to quickly edit things like this, pimple and hair brushes. So with the spot healing brush, you simply select the area, adjust your brush size, and select as much as possible only the area that you want to be removed. And Photoshop tries to guess it for you. So you see that, all right? And most of the time, it does a perfect job at doing it, okay? But sometimes you see imperfections like this one, wherein you can still see the track of the thing that you want removed. And so another tool to do it more accurately would be this one, the patch tool. And if you want to switch between these tools, all have the same shortcut, which is J. Just press Shift and then J, J, J. It's changing. Can you see that? There. So this is the patch tool. All right. Again, better if you're editing, guys, to create a layer so that it's easier to undo your mistake. So kunwari na mess up nyo to, if you're able to mess up this layer, then simply delete it and then you have the layer underneath. All right. So for the patch tool, you can use source or destination. So you just select it. The beauty with the patch tool is you can tell Photoshop where to sample. So this one is selected at source. So the thing that you transfer, you drag it, would be the source where Photoshop will try to match it. So select and drag. All right. So is there better? Is it, is one tool better than the other? Not necessarily. For me, the spot healing brush is faster, quicker. The healing brush is more accurate, though it takes more time because you have to select, deselect, and then one by one remove those pimples. All right. So that's the spot healing brush tool. The clone stamp tool, on the other hand, is this one, clone stamp tool. For the clone stamp tool, you will be selecting where you want to sample and then clone. So for sampling, press Alt and then click on that area, and it will try to sample and paint it wherever you want to paint it. So for example, let me show you what I did there again. So the shortcut keys for zoom in and zoom out is Command minus, Command plus. For full screen is Command 0. Okay. So Command plus to zoom in. So for example, you have a pimple over here and the clear skin over here. So sample on the clear skin and then paint on the pimple. Again, it's a bit obvious, right? So if I click here, what you can do, okay, what you can do is you can, again, lower down the opacity a bit and click and brush, click and brush. So it's not that obvious. All right. So that is the clone stamp tool. Another useful tool that we use is the crop tool. So we can flatten this image. When we say flatten, all of the layers will be merged into one by pressing Command Shift and E. All right. The shortcut for the crop tool is C. So when you extend this, for example, and this is more useful when you have plain background and the baby is in the center. This one, I'm not sure if Photoshop can really catch it, okay? Because Photoshop can extend the background here, okay? So just by clicking the content aware tool and pressing enter, and Photoshop will judge and try to sample from the image and try to get a picture of the whole image. And let's see if it works here. Pretty good, eh? Pretty good. Can you see that? So it extended the fur, the headband, and the background. So here's the before and here's the after. So that's a useful tool in the content in Photoshop. So basically, those are the tools that I use when I'm editing my newborn photos. And the next part of this lecture series will be teaching you in detail how I use those tools and how I edit my newborn photos. So please like and subscribe this channel, share among your friends, and hopefully we'll learn a lot. And I hope to see you in my workshop.